West, y'all.
I actually had moved to West Auckland the year before, so 2012, and I started a job at Rutherford College as a high school teacher, teaching Te Reo Maori. And, I thought I've always wanted to represent my people. I've always wanted to be a mouthpiece, particularly, for vulnerable communities, for communities that struggle, to be a voice for that particular cohort of people. And so, for me, I recognized that local board at the time, didn't have any Māori, didn't have any youth. And so for me, it was really important to not only be there, but every decision that we make at the council level has an opportunity for Māori to be there, to actually offer suggestions or views or opinions, and that was really important. But I think going back to 2012 and 2013, I'm just thinking of some of the issues. I don't know if you've heard about the Te Atatu Marae. That's been a really big kaupapa for 50 years in the Te Atatu community. And I remember going to a meeting there, and so many of the community at that particular time didn't want to see a marae on their peninsula, And I used to hear like the most racist comments, things like, "Oh, a marae will bring gangs."
Really?
And so that's absolutely rubbish. And I'm so glad that 9 or 10 years later, that's changed. People now want to see the marae there. That the opinions and views have changed about things Māori, and I think that's over time, and it will continue to get better. It's still not perfect, but it will continue to get better. And so we're progressing that marae, and it hopefully will start to be built within the next year or two.
You're right about the progression, because maybe over the last 5-6 years, there's been a real push, Even the media. I know the media, they have to pronounce the names properly, places and names, and even the police. The police now have to pronounce the names properly.
Absolutely, and so they should.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Māori.
But it seems like it's like snap the fingers, it's changed. So it's like, to me, that feels like, they've been told, now they have to do it. But it's been like this trying to change the narrative. I hate that word, narrative, but they're trying to change. And have more awareness for the culture, indigenous culture.
It has to be like that because the first language of this country was Māori. It was Te Reo Māori. You can't, you won't find Te Reo Māori anywhere else in the world. So it has to be protected. It has to be. We have to be able to participate there. And so I like what the mainstream media have done in terms of using Te Reo Māori pronunciation so much better than say 10 years ago. I really like that. There's training on the use of Māori or tikanga Māori within workplaces. So I love this shift. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what Aotearoa looks like, say, in the next 10 to 20 years.
Yeah. 10, 20 years, do you think? Or less than that?
Well, I don't know. The government at the moment, they've got this goal of 1 million speakers of Te Reo Maori by 2040. So that's 200 years after the signing of Te Tiriti o Waitangi. And so that's a big goal, 1 million speakers. So that's obviously not just Māori, but that's actually non-Māori as well. So that's a really big goal to have. And so I think we're sort of working towards that. But if we need to do better in that space.
Yeah. Especially with the schools, like having Te Reo at schools, like have a subject like you got maths, English, and Te Reo like next to it, like compulsory.
Yeah, compulsory.
Have they got that?
It's not compulsory. Schools can make it compulsory if they want to, so it's up to schools to make it compulsory. But it's the government, the Ministry of Education hasn't said we've got to make it compulsory, but schools have decided to make it compulsory. I'd even go further than that. I'd say that how can we incorporate more Te Reo Maori, say, in your social studies class, in your English class, in your maths class, in your PE class. So it's using Te Reo Maori not just in a Maori way, but in like different areas of life. What are some words or phrases that we can use in PE, like in basketball or rugby, or tennis or things like that. So yeah,
and make it normal,
normalize it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
normalize it.
Yeah,
I think it's important, especially with the new generation coming up, that the schools put it in there, because after all, it's the older generation that are the most racist ones, in this country. Like, once they go, you got the new breed coming up with that don't even live around that environment of knowing what race is where it is, and just used to talking you know.
Absolutely. I mean, kids aren't born racist.
No.
No, it's an attitude that you learn, and unfortunately, you learn it from particular people in our community and our society. Our adults, and so kids are definitely not born like that, and it's unfortunate. Also the media also play a role in that in terms of showcasing stereotypes. That's really important, to think that Māori like this, Māori and Pacifica are like this. Actually, no, we actually need to challenge those stereotypes and actually think for ourselves.
Yeah, so it's interesting how you say it's kind of cool to see what's going to happen in the future, what it looks like after all this, the next generation, like we said. Like, what does it look like? What does it look like, do you think?
Yeah, that's cool. So some of the things we're currently seeing at the moment, so I don't know if you've been on the train much, but you can hear Te Reo Maori in terms of, when you're...
on the radio, when it comes up.
Yeah. So, like, we're about to go to this particular area, or you must have your hop card. I forgot exactly in Te Reo Maori what they say. I've only been on a couple of times in the last year. But, that's really important because the Māori language has to be seen and heard in public spaces. And the public transport's the perfect opportunity. But I guess my dream would be, for example, like, I can go to the doctors and I can tell them in Te Reo Māori what's wrong with me. I can able to order my fish and chips, in Te Reo Māori. So it's actually using the language at an everyday level, and I think that's how you should be learning. That's how a language should be used, rather than just focus on ceremonial purposes like pōwhiri and things like that. Using it in an everyday context is the goal, is the dream.